Right, so. Diamonds are forever. So, right, yes, diamonds are forever. So, after On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the producers, Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman, they were like, oh dear, what do we do? Mamma mia. But anyway, yeah, so they brought Sean Connery back. They paid him a lot of money, and Sean Connery agreed because he wanted to give that money to charity. So that was quite noble of him and quite honourable and good on him. You know, he set up like a scholarship or something for people in Scotland for actors, I believe, in Scotland. So that's good. That's good on him. But yeah, I dislike this film. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's fun. It's nice to see Sean Connery back in the role. But as I said in the last video I did on Her Majesty's Secret Service, right? I mean, again, I think that this film would I think that film would have been better if Sean Connery had come back for that, and I think this film would have been better if George Lazenby had come back for this. You know, which is, I know it sounds confusing, but like this film, like, because I remember as a little kid, I remember being put off watching On Her Majesty's Secret Service because it didn't have Connery or anyone, Roger Moore or anyone I recognised. I was always told as well that that's one of the not so good ones. Don't watch it. So I kind of went from You Only Live Twice to then watching this film, and it just, I mean, okay, I guess you could look at it as a sequel to that, as just a straight, takes place right after that. Bond wants to find Blofeld and kill him, and yeah, fair enough. But Blofeld is played by, again, a completely different actor, but it's played by an actor who was in You Only Live Twice, who got stabbed in the back. Charles Gray. Yeah, so that doesn't make any sense. That's very confusing. When I was a kid, I was confused by that. But this has happened a lot, actually, like with the James Bond franchise, and I'll get into that, like, again. I know I keep saying I'll get into that later in a future video, but I will talk about that. But like, this guy is Blofeld. He was a random cameo character in You Only Live Twice. Then you've got like Maud Adams, who played a Bond girl in Man with the Golden Gun. Then she was in Octopussy, playing a completely different character. Then you've got the villain in The Living Daylights, comes back again in Goldeneye, plays a completely different character. And yeah, it's just all a bit confusing. As I say, the continuity with James Bond is very loose. It doesn't always make sense, but it does if you switch your brain off, I suppose. But anyway, enough about that. Diamonds Are Forever. It definitely has one of the best, again, Shirley Bassey doing the song, and they got the same director who did Goldfinger, and they got the same singer to sing the song, and so they've got that, and I guess they wanted to recapture that same magic Goldfinger had, because that was the most popular, most successful Bond film, I guess, at the time, or it's the most well reviewed. So they wanted to recapture that magic. The director actually is called Guy Hamilton, and I think he did the next two after this. But yeah, like, they wanted to recapture that magic. And this movie, it feels more like a Roger Moore movie. It feels more like a comedy, and it doesn't take itself seriously. And I guess you've just got to be in the right mood for that. But I guess the producers were just they were a bit panicky because the last film was so depressing. James Bond gets married and then his wife gets shot. So they thought, let's just make this film a joke. Let's just have fun with it, And the guy that they got to play Blofeld is just a joke. He's just a joker. He's just a clown. You see him multiple times getting killed. Like, he's got people who pretend to be him, or you've got people who are like wearing masks. Or actually, no, sorry, I'm confused. Actually, I've just thought about it. Is he wearing a mask himself, or has he just got other people to wear masks that look like him? Because that's... Anyway, I'm confused. Either way, the performance that this guy gives as Blofeld is just really just camp and silly. And, I think it's a shame, really, because I feel like Blofeld's like the top villain. Like, he's the top villain. Yeah, you can have like the jokey, the two gay henchmen. Fair enough. You can have all the silliness and the you know the wacky goofiness, but like the villain's got to be serious. The villain has got to be intense and intimidating, and this just doesn't have that. It doesn't have that intimidation factor. And in terms of like the action in this film, there's a good fight in an elevator with lots of glass and stuff, and that's a pretty good fight. There's a couple of car chases. One car chase where there's everyone's talked about this, with the whole car leaning on one side and then it somehow ends up on the other side. Whatever. I think to be honest with you, I don't really like the Las Vegas setting of this. I don't really like the Vegas setting. I don't think it works for me for a James Bond film. I think James Bond should go to more exotic places. More kind of like European places, and then also just more exotic places. Like, what I mean? Like Spy Who Loved Me, he goes to Egypt. So that's cool. That's exotic. That's all mysterious. Vegas is I don't like Vegas. It just seems like a terrible place to go. To be honest with you, like you could go there and just lose all your money. Other than that, what else is there? What else is there to do in Vegas? So that just doesn't really work for me. And the third act in this film, the big action scene at the end, isn't exciting. It's not enjoyable. Again, it's just goofy. She's shooting a machine gun and she's like, ha ha ha, silly, ha ha ha, yeah. She falls off the thing, oh, ha ha ha. There isn't really like a fight at the end with him and like a henchman, like a really good fight. Not like in You Only Live Twice where, he fights that dude and then he gets eaten by piranhas. That's what I want to see. And this film just doesn't really have a very good ending. I think it's probably my least favorite James Bond film, which is a weird, yeah. I don't hate any James Bond film, to be honest with you. I don't hate any James Bond film. I think that there are just stronger ones and then there are weaker ones. And I think this is definitely the weakest James Bond film for me because you're bringing back Connery and it's like you don't know what this film is. You don't know what this film is. You don't know what you want this to be because you're too afraid to be serious because you think that might harm the box office and you're just making a goofy movie, and it is a goofy movie. And what was I going to say? My mind's gone completely blank. Mine's gone completely blank. Apparently though, I think they had a lot of fun making this film. I think Sean Connery had a lot of fun making this film, and in terms of his performance, like he's okay. He's okay in the film, but he looks really out of shape in this film. Well, not like really really out of shape, but he just like this is 1970, like 1971, I think early 70s. The last film we did was 1967. And so you look at the two, look at the space in between that, and it's like it almost feels like a decade has gone past. I would say even he looked better in Never Say Never Again than he does in this film. For his age is what I'm just trying to say. I think he was about 40 or whatever, but in Never Say Never Again he was like 50 something, early 50s and whatever. But he surprisingly looks better. But whatever. But either way, I think they had probably too much fun making this film. Because I think sometimes when you have too much fun making a film, the film could be crap. And again, I think George Lazenby should have come back. Definitely a stupid mistake not coming back for this film. Although maybe it's actually a good thing. Maybe he probably sees it as a good thing because this film is not as good. And yeah, I would say On Her Majesty's Secret Service much better than this film. Much better than this film. It's fun. There are fun moments. I like the two gay henchmen. Like the two gay henchmen are great, and their death scene, the bit at the end where they both get killed, is brilliant. Like he sort of gives him like a wedgie and then flips him over and then throws him into the sea.
He's certainly left with his tails between his legs.
Brilliant. Cinema. That's cinema. That's great. I don't really care much for the Bond girl in this as well. I'm not all that like she's nice. She's nice looking. I don't know. She's quite funny, but like she doesn't really do it for me, she's not like Honor Blackman or Tracy, Diana Rigg. She's not one of those Bond girls that really gets you, you know what I mean? But anyway, yeah, I've got nothing else to say about this film because it's just meh, 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 meh. And as I said before in a previous video, this era of James Bond is the weird era because you've got George Lazenby, Connery's out, George Lazenby's in, then George Lazenby's gone, now Connery's back. It's all a bit weird. It's all a bit like, what is going on? What is this franchise? What are we doing? And then after this film, Connery then doesn't come back again. He just says, oh, it was nice to come back for again, guys. Yeah, and thank you for all the money. I will put that to good use. But then he just buggers off again. And obviously, again, yes, he does come back again in future in the 80s. He does come back for Never Say Never Again, but that was a whole completely different studio, completely different. It's not set in the same world. He comes back as James Bond. He plays the character again one last time, but in a completely different movie. So yeah, anyway, and now we're on to Roger. We're on to dear old Roger. Good old Roger. But again, I still think that we're in the weird era because I don't think people were super duper like accepting of Roger Moore when he first took on the role. But I think maybe like George Lazenby probably helped him a little bit by doing the role once and then leaving and then bringing back Sean Connery and then not being as good as he was. I think the fact that Roger Moore was already popular beforehand, so he was able to take on the role, and I think people were, eventually people were accepting of him because he did 3 movies. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to stop talking about this film now, but this is probably my least favorite James Bond film, which is it's sad for me to say because I'm a huge James Bond fan. I'm a huge James Bond nerd, and this one I always find like when I go through like a big old marathon, this is the hardest one to watch because it's just meh. It's just silly. It's just silly and it's goofy. It's nice to see Sean Connery back, but it's just not. That's all it's got, really. That's all it's got. Yeah. People must have loved it though when it first came out because when it first came out, people were probably really happy that the original actor was back. But obviously, because it came out like 40 years ago, we're able to now look at these films sort of objectively without all the hype and stuff. But anyway, yeah, that's it. I'm not going to talk about this anymore. On to the next one. Live and Let Die. Right. Bye bye. See ya.